Wild Wednesdays. Let's get into that. My intention for Wild Wednesdays is to bring some deep healing and soul nourishment, but also to reflect to you aspects of yourself that you want to embody and or set free, and also to inspire you to give yourself permission to be exactly who you are. There will be lots of storytelling, guests on my show, sharing their stories and insights and experiences. Like, you can look forward to all types of goodness. It's really like anything that has been considered taboo or kind of rejected from the mainstream society or your family or yourself that you hide about yourself. We're going to be talking about it. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the first Wild Wednesday. I'm here with my first guest. Super, super excited. I have Mikki Bey here. We're gonna get into like her whole story. This Wild Wednesday series is kicking off with a bang, and I'm super excited and grateful to have her here and that she said yes and all of that great stuff. But first, let me do a little introduction of Mikki Bey. So she is a life coach, entrepreneur, speaker, mother, and she created an empire that dominated the beauty industry. She's been a news producer for CBS, a celebrity makeup artist, and has a background in marketing. She was on Shark Tank, Vogue, Essence, CNBC, ABC, and all the things. Like, this chick is okay, well rounded. Okay. Her and her husband, Raheem Ali, have a joint business baby together named the Poly Couple Next Door, which serves people through their story of getting engaged on their first date, marrying 90 days later, and deciding to open their marriage after 4 years of monogamy. And so that is what we're here to talk about, is this polyamory lifestyle. So first of all, let me say I was yesterday years old when I discovered all this stuff about you. Because like I said, like I just saw clips of you on
Yeah.
YouTube, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like my higher self speaking. Like, I was just so drawn to you. And I was like, she sounds like me. But then the other girl that was interviewing you sounded like my shadow self, where I'm like having this, like, I know, it's a whole thing. But anyway, I didn't know anything about you, right? And I just
Mhm.
reached out and I followed the inspiration to invite you to be my first guest for this Wild Wednesday series. And so, me just learning that you were on Shark Tank and your whole resume, I'm like, wow, like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't know, because then I probably would have been nervous. Like,
You
I
know
would
what?
have
Look
been
how the
nervous.
universe works, right?
Right.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited to have you here. Um, I want just tell the people, my viewers, about a little bit about yourself, like your who you are and like your journey to polyamory.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, thank you so much for reaching out to me. I said yes to you immediately when you asked me because I could feel your energy. And it was just so refreshing. I was like, absolutely, I would love to do this. So thank you for asking me to be your first guest. Like, that's amazing. And we're going to be able to look back at this and be like, it all started here.
Right.
Okay, a little bit about me. You know what? I'm going to describe myself as a teacher, a lover, someone who really loves people. And I think that is all of those jobs that you mentioned have something to do with like it being in service to people. And I think that has been like the common thread for everything that I've done. Even when I worked in pharmaceuticals, I worked on the marketing side, and it's about helping patients, it's about helping doctors get the right information to give to patients. So everything that I have done has always been about serving people. Right now, I am a relationship coach. I help people really find first their voice and understanding who they are, connecting to self. And then if they desire to be partnered, then I help them do that. I manifested my husband in 40 days. So I'm very well known for that. We got engaged on our first date, married 90 days later. We've been married for 7 years. As you mentioned in the bio, we've been open for 3. We opened in our 4th year of marriage. And it has been the most amazing journey becoming polyamorous. And I really think that becoming polyamorous for me was a necessary step in my self actualization. I don't think that I would know myself the way that I know myself now if I was not brave enough to ask for what I needed, which was freedom. I needed to be just set free. I was feeling just like something like I needed to have the freedom to express myself in a different way. And I was already married and I didn't know what that really looked like. But I was brave enough to have that conversation with my husband, and we decided to open our marriage, and we have not looked back. And
Mhm.
now we teach couples how to
Yeah.
open relate, how to communicate better. I specialize in emotional regulation. And
Mhm.
so those things are important when you're managing multiple relationships. They're important in monogamy too, don't get me wrong. I mean, ideally, you're setting your relationship agreements, you are figuring out, what are your boundaries in your relationships, you're learning to emotionally regulate yourself. All of those things are, regardless of what relationship structure you're in, you should be learning those tools.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow. Okay. I like so I have so many questions. So I know like the whole freedom piece and needing to be free in your marriage. Like I'm curious to know how that conversation went with you and your husband. Like you guys are married and
Mhm.
typically marriages are monogamous, committed, they're under religious
Yes.
programming and all of that. And so I'm just curious to know, and I'm sure my viewers and subscribers would be curious to know how you guys work that out. Like what was the conversation like? And were you guys on the same page when it happened when you talked about it? Who brought it up first? Like what how did this happen?
I brought it up,
Mm,
and it was very well received. I mean, one thing that I think is great is before I brought up the conversation, I knew that I could bring it up.
mm,
We had the type of relationship that even though we had not discussed this before, I felt comfortable enough to say this is something I'm thinking about. And that type of safety allowed me to be able to ask for what I needed. And he met me right there and was like, absolutely. Like, if that's what you need to do, I want you to do that. Like, literally in that conversation, he
mhm,
said that. And it was just the most, both of us felt like, oh, okay, I could breathe now. And for me, it wasn't about dating anyone else. I was really struggling with my sexuality and I didn't understand what was going on with me. I just had a baby. We had a 1-year-old at the time. And my sex drive was just like, I was out. Right. And I was like, okay, well, I'm a new mom. And this, no, it was worse than just being a new mom. And I just knew that that was not going to be sustainable for the long haul. And I didn't want to give up my marriage. I was very afraid. I was just like, well, what is going on? No one talks about that part when you get married. Like if you have mismatched sex drive and how you manage that. And so it was very difficult for me. It was very painful for me to feel like I was failing in this area of my life. And so when I found polyamory, I was like, oh, let me explore this. Let me think about this because I started to understand that this was more than just I have a low sex drive. And what I have recently come to know about myself is that I'm on the asexual spectrum, which I did not have that information when I asked to be open, but I knew I was having some type of internal struggle and I needed to figure out what that was. I was like, am I gay? Am I like, I don't know what is going on, but something is amiss, right? My husband was very relieved. He was like, monogamy was difficult for him, but he never expressed that to me. He
Mm,
never said that to me until I brought up us being in an open relationship. And he was just like, oh, thank you. I felt so badly. I was like, well, why didn't you say anything? And he was like, well, what was I supposed to say? And
yeah.
I was like, and at that time too, I was very religious. So when we got married, even though we got married in a very non-traditional way, we still did Christian marriage counseling. Excuse me. We still did Christian marriage counseling. We still followed all of that. I was very religious at that time. And to answer your question about monogamy and religion, for me, after I had my son, I started thinking about just all the things that I believed. And once I was able to uncouple religion with commitment, right? With the monogamy of commitment. And I just said, I don't need monogamy for commitment. And once I kind of broke those two apart, then I started evaluating, okay, well, what is it that I believe? Do I really believe that there is a God that is not going to accept me because I don't want to be with this one person for
Yeah.
the rest of my life? Like, I just don't believe that. So, no disrespect to anybody who does, but I just don't believe that a loving God would tell me that he does not accept me or, spirit doesn't accept me for literally being who I was created to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. I totally agree. So I explored a relationship with my best friend, who's a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been friends since we were 15. And I struggled with my own sexuality because it wasn't like we were thinking about each other in that way when we were younger. It wasn't until in our 20s
Mm-hmm.
when we started kind of like, crossing
Mm-hmm.
the line and whatnot and exploring with each other. But I kept it a secret because my family is very religious. And
Mm-hmm.
I was struggling with my own beliefs and that, programming around our sexuality and like God judging us and spirit,
Mm-hmm.
like that whole piece, like it was very hard for me. So it was a secret for a long time, like 10 years
Mhm,
long before like
mhm.
we weren't even like together, but we were just
Right.
sexually
Yeah, yeah,
exploring and
yeah.
messing around. And I wasn't sure if this is what I wanted because my attraction is typically with men. My sexual
Mhm,
attraction is with men. And so it was very, very hard for me. I had all those layers playing out. But what you said about like God being a loving God, like and this is who I am. Like, so why would I not be at who I am thinking that God is going to judge me or strike me down? All those things that
correct.
come up, for us
Yeah.
that prevents us from being who we are. But
Yeah.
I really need that permission from God. And there's no way that I could have, it's not like God, like we know internally. So it was an
It's
internal
the int
process. It's in
Mhm.
our heart. And so me following my heart was like that's the permission that I needed and that's God
Right.
speaking to me and God loves me no matter what. And so
Exactly.
but of course, family, religion and all that having to go through all of
Mhm.
that but making that decision of just being okay with you and God, like that is
That's it.
so key. And so I'm glad that you said that. And then
Mhm,
something else you said about you already felt comfortable in your relationship
mhm.
before to be able to be open enough to feel safe enough
Yeah.
to express yourself and what your desires were and what your needs were, like that's next level, like what people don't even think about in their relationships. Like that is should be the
Mhm,
foundation,
mhm,
of any relationship. You should go into relationship feeling like that. And typically for me, I didn't have dynamics. I was in a
mm,
long-term relationship before and never felt safe to be myself. And so me being with my best friend was the first time I felt completely able to be
mhm,
myself, feel safe enough to express all aspects of myself and all of that. And so you saying that is so super key and reassuring as well.
mhm,
Like a lot
mhm.
of women need to hear that, like that. is what frees you in order to do that. And kudos to your husband for being like, yeah, okay. Was he asking, was he like thinking you would be like with women? Because typically are like men are like, yeah, okay, but then be like, wait a minute, what do you mean? Like, are you talking about being with women or am I gonna be with another man? And did he feel like whatever that decision you made, like did he ever feel like in competition with your decision?
You know what? For this to be your first podcast, you ask me questions nobody has asked. That's a good question. So when I originally, and I don't even know if I've said this out loud, but when I originally asked to be open, it was because I thought I needed to date women.
Mm.
That was what was in my heart. I was like, I need to find out if I need to find out, right? And it didn't happen that way. We opened, and I ended up, the first person I met was a man, and we started dating. I fell in love. It was like a whole thing, and it was everything that was a first for us at polyamory happened on my side first. So there was a huge adjustment period. I think all in all, he handled it amazingly. But we were educating ourselves and trying to figure out, polyamory as we were like in it. And that's difficult to do. I mean, it's basically like learning a new language, right? It's not something that we are programmed for. So yes, there were times where he had to really, kind of go inside of himself and ask himself, why am I feeling this way? Or, if he was feeling jealous. He hasn't expressed feelings of jealousy to me. He has told me he felt envious, which he thinks is a little different. So he said he's felt envy, just for how, if I came home like really happy, from being with this other person. He did feel a little tense, but now, I mean, 3.5 years open, and we've been through a lot of different iterations. And I felt jealousy. I've expressed that to him. We've worked through it. But it's really about transparency and communication. And if you're going to be successful in any type of relationship, it doesn't matter what structure, you have to have those things. And I think that our polyamorous journey has taught us how to be able to say the hard things and to hold space for that person to say those things so that it is a safe space for them to do so, and keep learning. It's a journey. We're not going to get right. We're not going to get it right every step of the way. There's going to be times where we jacking up, right? But hopefully you live another day to try it differently and to have a conversation with those who you're in relationship with to try to get it right for the
Yeah.
people that are in it.
Yes, yes. And you saying that, what did you say? You said something about the jealousy piece because in with people like in traditional relationships, people have skepticism and are can be very like fearful of opening their relationship and just including people in their dynamics or even just in the monogamous relationships, um thinking about their partner going to be with another person strikes up jealousy, right? But
Mm-hmm.
not everybody is really honest about how they feel, about like feeling jealousy, but it just comes out in this weird way of possessiveness and being super
Yeah.
attached and, just unhealthy dynamics and arguing and all of that stuff. So I appreciate how you said that you guys were able to express that you're feeling jealousy. This is what I'm
Yeah.
feeling. Like that's a true value for me is to be able to say, first of all, have the awareness that this is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling and have the courage enough to express that, like
Mm-hmm.
this is how I'm feeling, and him and still being able to like, how did you guys like navigate that? Like, especially with like if you said you fell in love with somebody, like what? Like, hold on.
Yeah.
So you're in love with your husband, right? And then
Yes.
like you're in love with somebody else. Like I think that's for me. And why I'm drawn to you is because I'm very open-minded and I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning so much about myself through my own sexuality and my own journey and what
Mm-hmm.
freedom really means to me. And so I've never like thought about being in a polyamorous dynamic like in
Mm-hmm.
that way, but I know that I am like, I'm very free spirited, and
Mm-hmm.
I do have the capacity to love multiple people, like in the and so because my heart is just like, I'm very like expansive, and but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time I struggle with being committed to one person and then committed to another person, and like how that all would play out for me. Like that just seems like
Mm-hmm.
a lot for me. And so I'm just very drawn to your rootedness in, especially being married at that. Like you're married, and
Mm-hmm.
also you guys also have a strong faith base as well, and how
Mm-hmm.
those all can
Yep.
coexist together. Like I feel like that is
Oh,
so
people can't
beautiful.
stand it. People
I
cannot
bet.
stand that
I
I
get
still
it
love the
though.
Lord, child. They can't stand
Yes,
it.
I
It's
get
so
it.
funny to me because like the when I say most of the comments that I get that are on the negative side always have something to do with God.
Yes, of
And
course.
it is the funniest thing to me because I am literally the work that I do is spiritual work.
Mhm.
I am
Yep.
connected.
Mhm.
So I do not take what anyone has to say about my relationship with God to heart at all because it is so personal. It is such a personal relationship that I have, but it gets under people's skin. They
Yeah.
cannot conceptualize
Yes.
that I can be in an open marriage and still love God, still go to church, still do all of those things, still be open about it,
Mhm.
right? So yeah, it blows people's minds. And honestly, for me, it was a long time for me to get to that place. I don't want to make it seem like I was always there because I wasn't. And it was really difficult. The biggest challenge for me and my freedom personally was religion. And I could not, I had to really reconcile what my beliefs were first. And I really had to reconcile what my spirituality was versus being attached to a religion, and I choose spiritual over doctrine any day. And so that's me. That's how I live my life. That doesn't mean I love going to church. I like the community of church. Um, I love the feeling of being in church. I adore that experience, but I can take from it what works for me, and I can kind of leave the rest there as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's a big issue, and I think honestly for the Black community, it's one of the things that has us in a chokehold
Absolutely.
because, for many generations, all we had was our religion. So when people hear that like you're not doing it the way your grandmama did it,
Right.
it's very offensive to them, and it's scary because
Very,
if
yeah,
we don't have this, then what do we have, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So I get it. We did a podcast about a week ago, and I was saying that, look, I wasn't this person 7 years ago. So I totally understand. Like, I was the person that would have been like, oh, y'all going to hell. I would have been that person. So I understand both sides of it. But it's kind of like the analogy that I use is like when single people want to give married people advice, right? Not that your advice is not good, but you do not have the perspective or be of being on this side. There are going to be some things that you just cannot conceptualize because you have not been on this side. That's not to say you cannot give me good advice. That's not to say any of that. But there are some things you're not going to get. It's the same way in polyamory. From your monogamous lens, there's just some things about my life you're not going to get. That's not to say that you're right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and you're wrong. It's just to say that your mind cannot open up to the point to be able to comprehend fully what I'm doing or how I'm living, because you're living from an entirely different lens. Your entire lens is a monogamous lens.
And
It's
they don't have
very
the evidence. Yeah, they don't have the evidence to, or the experience to even
right.
understand or understand the journey to that, and
Yep.
the beingness in that. Like they just and they don't even have there's the blockage there that's preventing them to even explore those aspects of themselves. Not even that it has to be like
Yep.
with poly or any sexuality thing, but any
Exactly.
area of their lives. Anybody who's religious and kind of like turned off and like,
Mm-hmm.
very rigid in their beliefs, is that they haven't taken the opportunities to step into and explore themselves and explore their
Yeah.
own curiosities. They already just shut it off anyway and be like, I'm going to hell. Because there's so many uh damning beliefs, because of the
Mm-hmm.
programming. And so, but
Mm-hmm.
if us as Black people, especially Black women, went and explored what our curiosities and what we're being drawn to, we would discover so much more about ourselves and so much more about what we actually believe, and that is God still, that is spirit, that is
Correct.
our ancestors still
Correct.
guiding us to help us grow, because God is love, right? And love wants us to grow. How we gonna grow with being stuck?
You don't have no experience.
We don't
Yeah.
have
I
no
mean,
experience.
that's what life is about. It's
Yes,
about the unfolding, or it's about the coming home to, right? And
absolutely.
so how do you get to,
Absolutely.
and I'm about to be 40. So, I've been asking all my friends who are 40 plus, like, when you were 40, did you have all these epiphanies? Because I feel like every day I'm having like these epiphanies about me, about who
Yeah.
I am, about what I like, about what I
Yeah.
don't like, and why I am the way that I am. That's what life is for. That's why,
Absolutely.
you're here literally to discover who you are.
Absolutely.
And it's unfortunate that so many people are afraid to do that, and they're
Yeah.
afraid to really even know themselves to the level that they're secure enough to be who they are in whatever setting.
And this is why I have you on here, and the future guests that I have on will have on here, because my channel is all about trusting ourselves, being ourselves, and freeing
Yeah.
ourselves. And just highlighting stories like this and experience like this is so important, from this
Hmm.
lens too. Talking
Yes.
about God and sexuality mixed together, like, we
It's
need
the
that.
same thing.
It's the
I
same
mean, think
thing.
about it. It's so interesting that the church often won't speak about the other part, but sexuality is spirituality.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
so understanding
Yep.
that really, again, what do you think an orgasm is? It's the release of resistance,
Yes.
right? Like, that's when
Yes.
you're most susceptible and
Yes.
open.
To the
Like, there's
divine.
nothing
Yes.
more spiritual than that. I
Say
mean,
it.
come on.
Say
So
it. Say it. We're creating life through,
that's
I mean, that's
right.
how we get here. It's
That's
so crazy how people like, oh, that term woo woo. I hate when people say woo woo. Our mere existence is woo woo. We came here,
mm-hmm.
we came from fluids meeting together. We came from, like, we our souls incarnating to a human form.
Yes.
We are
Yes.
woo woo. So everything
Mm-hmm.
about us is woo woo, and sex and being taboo and all of that stuff, that's not taboo. It's our spirituality. It's our connection to the divine. And it just, like, I love that you are there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm like, I was drawn to you for a reason, because you're there. And for you to
Mm-hmm.
be in the position of power that you are in and been in so many spaces, were you, when you were like on Shark Tank and CB, all the places
Mm-hmm.
you was that a period of time when you were in your sexual identity, like, comfortable? Were you out? So you're just like
No,
out,
this is
coming out.
new.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, when I was on Shark Tank, I wasn't married yet. That was in 2015, so that feels like a whole world ago.
Mm,
Um, no, I was not. And I've been a public figure since about 2008. So, I've lived my life professionally a lot in the open. I was a celebrity makeup artist. I worked on television shows and had a lot of celebrity clients and did that kind of stuff. But I was primarily in the background, but people knew who I was because of what I did. This is different because now this is about my real life. And so I had to really, when you saw me on Coriel's podcast, that podcast came about from a conversation we had off air. I did her podcast twice.
mm,
And she asked me to come back and talk about that because she was like, I really think that this would be a good topic for us to bring up. And at that time, I was not out. And I said, well, let me think about it. I'm not sure I want to put this publicly. It wasn't a secret. The people in my life knew, like my family, my friends all knew. But it just wasn't something that I was public about. The moment I decided to say yes to that, and the night before it came out, because we taped it months ago. And it just came out. I think it came out at the beginning of January. We taped it in like November of last year.
Mhm.
So I didn't even remember what I told her, what I said to her, anything. I'm watching it like y'all are watching.
Mhm.
And I was so proud of it because what I hope people see when they see me and when they see Raheem is that we are just normal, regular, schmegular Black folk that's just living, and we run businesses, we're parents, and then we also happen to be polyamorous. And I hope that that helps to destigmatize, these things that are taboo and these things that feel so weird and, oh, well, those are those people that are doing that. No, 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 it's these people. It's
Mhm.
us, we the people that's
Mhm.
doing it, right? Because, everything is weird until you know somebody that
Exactly.
does it, right?
Exactly.
Until you personally can say, oh yeah, well, I know Mikki, I know Raheem, and I know that their life is just like mine, except for the fact that they're non-monogamous.
Mhm.
That's why I was so happy with just how that came out, because I think that that did come across. And then also me speaking about my asexuality for the first time as well. So that's what I ended up finding out, that I was not bisexual. I'm actually asexual. And that was solely, I think, I don't think I could have gotten that information any other way,
Yeah.
other than being able to explore inside of my marriage. And one thing that I have to give, I have so many things I can give him credit for, but one thing I really want to give him credit for is that this is difficult. Your wife, after 7 years of marriage, is coming to you and saying, I'm asexual.
Okay, can you wait a minute? So the terms, oh, I
Yes.
didn't even break that because I'm also very new to all the terms and
Okay.
the queer community and all of that. I just love who I love and be living, we be just doing our thing and I'm
I
learning
love
as
it.
I go, and so polyamory, what can you tell us
Yes.
what that
So
means?
polyamory is a love style that basically means you have the capacity to love more than one person.
Okay.
And there's it's under a huge umbrella of consensual non-monogamy or ethical non-monogamy. So there are a lot of things that fall under that are not necessarily polyamory. So it might be swinging. That's a consensual non-monogamous. It's under the umbrella. When people say, oh, I give my husband a hall pass, that's consensual non-monogamy, but maybe it only happens once or twice a year. Threesomes, also consensual non-monogamy. You're bringing someone into your relationship. So there are places where this is already happening and people just are not calling it what it is. But if you've had a threesome with your partner, that's consensual non-monogamy, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we are saying is that we are able to have multiple loving relationships with more than one person.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really live by the polyamory tenets of, being open and transparent and getting consent from everyone. So none of this is, everything that I do, my husband knows about it. Everything he does, I know about it. So we are consenting to being in an open dynamic.
Okay. Okay. Oh my gosh. Wait. I have questions about that, but hopefully I don't lose it. But
Okay.
okay, and then the asexual, when you say you're asexual,
Yeah.
I'm thinking like you're just not sexual, and that's hard for me to like, you're just not sexually aroused or sexually like interested in having sex or whatnot, which is
You're not far
foreign
off.
to me because I'm very much very
Sexual.
sexual, like I wouldn't say hypersexual, but and I'm not like a person who sleeps around with many people, but my sexual drive and sexual energy is very thick, very strong. I have a strong libido. Like it's been like this my
Mm-hmm.
whole life since I was a
Mm,
child. And so like
mm,
small. And my sexual energy was
mm-hmm.
awakened more than I mean sooner than it needed to be. But I think this is just my natural constitution because I've just been highly a high sex drive person. So for asexual, I'm like trying to understand that. So let me know
So you're
what
not
that's
far
about.
off. I'm demisexual, gray sexual, and fray sexual. And so there are many sub identities on the spectrum of asexuality. And I'm three of them, and maybe possibly more that I haven't discovered. But the really big, I'll tell you how I really figured this out. So I dated the woman because I told you I needed to do that to kind of figure out where I was at. So I dated the woman, and I was just like, nope, this is not it. This doesn't make me feel any different, right? It wasn't bad, but it just wasn't like it didn't do anything for me. So I was like, all right. So that's not it. So then I was really confused because I was like, okay, neither one is hidden. Like, what's going on? Like, what's going on? And it was actually through that relationship and with my husband where they both brought up asexuality to me.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, no, I mean, my husband had said it years ago, but I wasn't ready to even look into it because we weren't open yet. And so to me, like, why admit this? And then you're going to tell me we need to get a divorce? Like,
Yeah.
no. So really what happened for me is after I started doing the research and I started seeing over the course of my life where this has been present from the time I became sexually active. I can see where I needed the cerebral emotional connection to even want to have sex with anyone. So that's demisexual. That my my sexuality could be really high, like my as far as my desire could be really high, and then it could drop off where I'll celibate for years. That's
Mm,
the gray sexual, right? Then my attraction could be really high, and it could be like I'm super attracted to you, or I'm not attracted to you at all. And sometimes I'm attracted at the beginning of the relationship and not at all after. So that's the phrase sexual, and there's nothing I can do about it.
mhm.
And what happened, it's a funny story actually. Two of my girlfriends came to visit over the summer, and I live in Atlanta. They came from California to have a good time, girls' weekend or whatever. And I'm listening to them. All of the conversations they were having was so sexual. It was so, I was just like, are y'all really thinking about this stuff in a day? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, what? Because I don't have sexual fantasy. So I'm not
Mm.
thinking about sex during the day or at all, really. Like I don't have the horniness feeling. That is foreign to me. So here I am, 39 years old, talking to my 40-year-old friends who are telling me they looking for dick appointments while they're here. So I'm like, what? And so that was a huge clue to me
Yeah.
that, okay, one of these is not like the other. So I really didn't put all the pieces together until this summer. Like this is pretty new information
Mhm.
for me.
And I feel like that's also why you're here too, because of course, us as a people, Black people and Black women, we get that label of being hypersexual, and that's,
Hmm.
we just savages and all of that. So to have you as a Black woman describe all of these ways in which your sexual expression comes through, which looks like not intercourse or not having
Right.
sexual fantasies, like we need to hear this. Like we need to see that this, and
Yeah.
women need to know that maybe there's someone out there who's watching this that needs to have like, oh my gosh, you just freed
A
me, like it's
hundred
okay for
percent.
me to feel like this, so I'm
I
so
wish I would have
grateful.
found somebody like that.
Yeah, I'm
I really
grateful.
wish I did. We do not hear a lot of asexual stories, and it doesn't mean that we never want sex. There are some that don't.
Hmm.
For me, that's not the case. It's not that I never want it, but it could be so infrequent that that's difficult for a partner, especially like every partner I've ever had has been like you, right? Like where
Yeah.
I think y'all attract us in
Yeah.
some way. But it's interesting to me because now that I am living in that truth and I am upfront about that
Yes.
with my husband and any other partners, I've been so well received. I mean, my husband was the first to say, look, you call the shots. It's what you want. If you want to do this, we do it. If you don't, that's fine too. I love you regardless. I accept you for who you are. That is huge. That is
Yeah,
major,
absolutely.
right? So I don't take that for granted. I know that he is a special, special person that I'm meant to do life with. Like we just click and get each other. And then also meeting new people and having to explain what that asexuality looks like. Because it doesn't mean I don't want any forms of intimacy or that I don't even want to be touched or any of that kind of stuff. But you're gonna have to check in with me more than the average bear, right? You're
Yeah.
gonna have to be okay if maybe we started off in a sexual relationship and we end up not being in a sexual relationship because I cannot solve for if and when that will happen for me. We
Yeah.
may have started off hot and heavy, and then somewhere along the line, it just tanks for me, and it's not what I want anymore. And I'm at a stage in my life where I'm not having any unwanted sex.
Yeah,
I'm just
I
not
know
doing
that's
it.
right.
I'm
I
not
know
doing it.
that's right.
If it's not something I truly, truly like have to have, I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm
Yeah,
good.
I
Yeah.
know that's right. And that's what comes with knowing yourself, and being aware and being able to voice what you
Yep.
need and want, which is so rare for people nowadays. Because, like you said, communication is key, and being able to communicate your needs and wants and knowing that is very, very important. And especially in a
Mm-hmm.
dynamic and relationship like yours,
Correct.
and that lifestyle. You mentioned demisexual, which is needing to feel an emotional connection.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's me as well. Like I
Mm-hmm.
really, that is important for me too. I mean, I should say that describes me as well. Like I
Mm-hmm.
just can't just sleep with anybody. Like I really have
Mm-hmm.
to deeply connected to you, feel
Mm-hmm.
emotionally connected, feel trust, feel safe, all
Mm-hmm.
of that in order to be sexually available and whatnot.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, or feel just, yeah, just safe and to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I have the feeling like I'm like turned on and stuff, but I have to have those things in order for me to do it. So
Right.
my little rep is like real small. The people that I've like,
Mm-hmm.
exchanged sexual energy with because of that. And I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that that was the term until I think I heard you mention it
Yep.
when you were interviewing before. And so
Mm-hmm.
that gave me an identification, label
Yeah.
for that. And I'm like, okay, how do I have such strong sexual energy, but I'm not out here like,
Yeah.
sleeping. I can't even do it. Like there's something there.
You know what? And I want to mention something about that too, because I think in our culture, there's this we slut shame, I feel like more than anybody, right? Like we are so again because of like that religious programming and not wanting to be seen as a hoe or not wanting to be seen as promiscuous. And that
Yeah.
is another huge misconception, which is so funny to me because I'm asexual. I'm definitely not out here having sex with everybody. But people think because you're poly, you're just having
Yes.
all this sex. You're having all
That's what
these
I was,
orgies,
yep.
you're having
Thanks for, yeah.
no, it's not necessarily what's happening, right? For
Mhm.
me, my connections are much more this to me feels like a great connection, right?
Yeah.
Like you and
Hmm.
I, like
Hmm.
this could be it could spawn into any number of things. And just because of the connection you have with the person, it doesn't mean that every connection you have needs to be physical. Being
Yes.
the physical manifestation of that relationship is not the measure of the relationship. Like people think like, oh, if you have sex with the person, that means it's deep or it's real or no, that's not the case. That's what we are taught
Yeah.
and programmed, but that's not the case. There are people that have sex with folks that they don't care about at all. And they
Right.
have deep relationships with people they're not having sex with at all. So it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
Thank
about
you
that.
for
And I
saying that.
wish people would stop making people who are hypersexual and acting on it mind your business.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with someone who is expressing their sexuality in the way that they need to express it, and even if they are a woman. Because
Yes.
when women express their sexuality, we got to be black women express their sexuality, we got to be all the names in the book. So I just want to free somebody today and just be like, do you, boo, do
Right.
you stay protected, do
Absolutely.
you.
Yep. Stay safe. I know that's
Mm-hmm.
right. And you said something that sparked a thought about my own journey and like just needing that when it comes to identification because I struggle. Like I said, like there was something you said though that made this make sense, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. But
Okay.
because my main attraction um is men, but I chose to be with this woman. Oh, emotional connection. I
Mhm.
discovered that I have emotional attraction to women, because
Yes.
when you're first like coming into your sexuality, like what label do I fit under? And I was like, maybe I'm
Right.
under the umbrella of bisexual, but I'm not sexually attracted to women. I know
Mm.
that I attract women and I have deep emotional connections and relationships with women, but I think I know this is the only woman that I could be with, sexually
Yeah,
into
yeah,
me
yeah,
and
yeah.
in relationship. But my sexual attraction is for men. And so I was really struggling with that. Like, where do I fit in? How does this even work? But I started to own like it's okay for me to be emotionally attracted to women. I love building connections emotionally. Like
Absolutely.
ever since I was a kid, I used to cuddle with my friends, like wrap my legs around them when we would stay the night with each other. Like
Yeah, there's
I
some
just
safety
like
there.
safety there,
Mhm.
right? And so I was confused because I'm like, how am I like sexually attracted to this woman and able to go like, and I actually had sexual experiences when I was a kid, like humping
Yeah,
your friends and playing house and stuff
right,
like that, like,
right,
but I
right.
never considered myself attracted to them. And so I was like, am I, because I've had these experiences, like, so I was struggling with that. But then I'm like, no, as I've grown more into my sexual identity and whatnot, I'm just like, no, it's okay for me to love this one woman. I don't have to put a label on it. Like I hate labels
Correct.
anyway. Like why do I have to even put a
Yeah.
label on anything? Like just stop. Like I created a whole video and all of that before about it, and I was just like, no, I don't like that's just not who I am. I don't like labels. I
Mhm.
don't like all those things. And so I just know that I love this woman,
That's
and I
it. That's
I
all that
will have
matters.
sex, amazing sex with this woman, and
Yes.
I'm attracted to men, and that's okay. I
Yeah.
don't have to do anything with that. Like it just is what it
Mhm.
is. And
It sure
so
is.
I love that you saying that brought that up for me. But
Mhm.
yeah, so oh my gosh, I have so many questions. So you brought up family. I'm gonna go there. We're gonna have to
Yeah.
come back and we're gonna have
I
to
was
do this again
Hey,
because
listen, I feel like I gotta come every season now since I kicked it up.
literally every season we got to make this into a thing because I have so many questions. I even had a few friends give me questions that they had too,
Oh,
and we ain't even touched none of that.
let's
So
go. Let's go.
right, but I want to talk about family because that was something that was very hard for me because my identity was very wrapped up in my family's, as
Mhm.
usually. And I have a
Yeah.
son as well, and he
Mhm.
he was 16, 17 at the time when I told him I was in a relationship with his godmother, who he's known his
Mhm.
whole life.
Mhm.
And so, I just think like I was so scared, like I was so fearful. That's why it was a secret for 10 years because I was scared to say like this is who I am and this is what I've been doing. And I really but I really had this urge to really be free and free myself and just want people in to know me more because I was frustrated that people weren't knowing me, but that was my own fault, right? So I had to take
Mhm.
responsibility for that. And so I was at the point where I'm like, I just want to be sexually free, And so
Yeah.
telling my family and whatnot, of course, it was my family is loving and whatnot, but they're so in their ways, like there was some
Mhm.
comments and things that, harsh things that were said, and like your whole identity gets shifts around. Like one day you like, oh my love and my goddess, and now I'm going to hell, demon. I won't see my mom in the
Mm.
afterlife, and I'm
Oh,
demonic. Like just a
wow.
switch like that, like okay, so I'm not
Mm.
the same person just because of what I'm doing. Like
Mhm.
that was confusing for me. So that
Mhm.
fear. So I want to know your experience with your family and friends, like when you told them, like it's one thing to be like, oh, I'm gay and all of this stuff, but being poly and being married and like opening your relationship, that I know that like just shook
Yeah,
the family dynamic.
we're over here. We are used to shaking some trees.
Okay.
Uh, when we got married, we eloped. We didn't tell anybody, and we actually announced it with like a website after we got married. And so people are kind of used to us doing our own thing. I think like we're not traditional folks. We've lived in 6 different states. We've kind of been to the beat of our own drum anyway. But with this, I think it was different because when we moved to Atlanta, like my family lives in Atlanta. I've never lived near my family since I got out of college. And so being here where you now have familial pressure, which we never had because we've always lived California, Texas, somewhere else where we didn't have either of our families nearby. One of the first things I did when I got to Atlanta was told my family that was here that we're poly because I'm not about to be tiptoeing around nobody. I'm grown, 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 grown. I got my own kids. Like I'm not about to be tiptoeing around y'all. So I wanted to tell them, not even necessarily like a coming out, but I wanted to let them know, like, if you see me in the streets, this what's going on, right? Like just know, because we live 10, 15 minutes from each other. Who knows
Yeah.
what could happen? And I'm like, I'm just not about to be tiptoeing around nobody, and I'm a grown lady. I'm just not doing it. One of my cousins was very, I think more so just concerned. She didn't say anything bad, but she was just really concerned for me and wanted to know more and wanted to know like, whose idea was this and why do I want to live this way? And questions that I think if I were on the other side, I would also ask
Yeah.
of my
Yeah.
family member, right?
Yeah.
And then I had, when it comes to the asexuality piece, honestly, I didn't come out to anyone about my asexuality in person, whereas I did with poly. I announced it on the internet. So everybody kind of found out at the same time about the asexuality piece. And I've had subsequent conversations with some of my family, and my older cousin, who's like a sister to me, was like, I mean, this just sounds like every woman. Like she really did not, she wasn't seeing how it's an orientation. She was just like, I mean, I feel like all of us feel like that. Like I don't understand. And I was like, but that's the thing. Like for me, this isn't situational. It's been my whole life since I started having sex. So as I go back and look at my history, I can see the demi, the gray, the fray in every relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's not just the whole, oh, well, women need connection to have sex. Oh, well, your desire is going to go up and down. No, it's not that. It's beyond that,
Yeah.
right? And so that has been difficult to explain to people because again, your perspective is what you're used to from your lens, and it's sometimes difficult for people to understand something that's so far away from where they are. They can't relate to it. But so far it hasn't been like I haven't had anyone say like they're not talking to us or anything like that.
Mm.
If anybody did unfriend us, we haven't noticed.
Yeah.
So, it's fine. Do
Uh-huh.
you, whatever makes you happy. I don't take any of that stuff personally. I know it's not
Yeah.
about me.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. 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 Okay. So I'm gonna try to find at least one of these questions.
Okay. I'm like, you
um
looking like you about to give me a doozy.
let's see. Hmm. Oh, you already answered that question. Okay, I'll ask this one. What fear do you think you have to break away from in order to be successfully poly?
I knew you was gonna hit me with a doozy. See, I felt it. I felt it coming. I think you have to get rid of the fear that you are going to be replaced.
Mm,
I hear that the most when we coach couples is that there's a fear of you're going to find someone else and leave me.
hmm.
And the reality is that can happen anyway.
Right.
So it's not poly that creates that, but
Yeah.
that's the fallacy, right? Like we think, oh, if I open my relationship, what if they find somebody else they like better than me? Well, that can happen anyway.
Hmm.
That can happen anyway. So I think that's one of the fears that I would say you have to get rid of. You have to get rid of the fear of, not owning someone. Like we have this ownership idea of, my husband, my wife.
Yeah.
I don't want my woman. I don't want to share my man. First of all, you cannot share a person.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Right.
It's not an object. This is a whole human who gets to decide what they are doing or
Yes.
not doing. So you're not sharing this person. And I think the fallacy of ownership really jacks us up. Like you have to
Yeah.
start seeing this person as their own entity unto themselves. That may be somebody you're doing life with, but you do not own their life. You don't own their decisions. You don't own anything about them.
Yes.
So I think those are the two things you got to really process
Yes.
before you can be successful in poly.
And that is so true about the ownership because I can see myself like when I said I saw my higher self in you and my shadow self in
Yeah.
the interviewer when she would make certain comments because I know that when especially when I was with my son's father, we were young and all that stuff and I definitely have that possessiveness quality in me and the whole like you're mine, like, and I don't want to, even with my best friend, like, I'm thinking, because
Mhm.
she created such this like safety for me. It's like, I don't want to share that with nobody else, being in that
Mhm.
kind of mindset. But what overrides that is that I want my partner, whoever I'm with, to be happy. I want I want them to be free because that's what I want. Is, I had this attitude like
Exactly.
I can do whatever I want, but you can't, like having that kind of control thing. Like that's my
Mm-hmm.
shadow side. I had to work through that. Like I can do it,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't. That's not fair, that's not
Mm-hmm.
balanced. And so that is something like we definitely all have to grow out of and being aware of that so that because
Mm-hmm.
ultimately we want people to be free, but people just think even just in a monogamous relationship that there's just it's just so much to that because of how it's set up and the beliefs and ideologies around it and
Absolutely.
all of that. So that's just a lot to unpack in itself. And so
Absolutely.
getting to that point of like not we don't own each other is super super mature. That's emotionally spiritual maturity. That's next level trust. And that's what I
Mm-hmm.
see in you, like it's just like you have this level of trust that I admire and just that's what I want for all of us, to be that free and open. And I feel like that's what you guys' polyamorous relationship represents to me
Mm-hmm.
is that you
Mm-hmm.
guys have this level of trust, that this level of safety and commitment to each other. Like that, people say that polyamory is not being committed, but that is commitment. Being polyamorous in the way that
Correct.
you guys are doing it is straight up commitment because you're committing
Yes.
and agreeing to doing life together in this way and supporting each other and who your individual identities are. That's what I would want from my relationships. And that's what I have with my loved one.
Mm-hmm.
Like our relationship is evolving and we're
Mm-hmm.
doing some things in our relationship, adjusting and whatnot. But we've grown to know to respect each other's individuality and who we are and what we want and desire
So
in life.
important.
And
Yeah.
so it's so important that ownership piece. And oh my God, we have to, it's like 2 minutes left. And I'm like, we
No.
just get into it. Lord, we're doing
Well,
this
I
again.
want to mention one thing about
Mhm.
that. Thank you for saying that as a beautiful compliment. But the trust that you see is trust in myself.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I trust myself
Yes.
to make myself feel secure and safe and
Yes.
loved. And then I bring that to my partner and he does the same. And we have not always been there, right? We
Yes.
have not. We have gone through, actually 2022 for us was the worst year of our marriage. It was terrible.
Mm.
And I say that to say a lot of times people want to put just the relationship goals out there and say like, oh, well, look at us, like we're doing so great. Yeah, we are doing great, but we've also had many many days where it was like right,
Yeah.
like, so we're not sitting here saying like we haven't been through anything. We've been through a lot, but it's how you repair. It's not always about the conflict. How do you come back out of conflict?
Yeah.
How do you get to a place where you're not putting the blame on the other person? You're taking ownership of your own wounds and the things
Yeah.
that you need to heal. And that's the work that we've done. And it helps now that we're both coaches, we're both
Yeah.
certified in this stuff, right? I mean, it definitely does help. But
Yeah.
when I talk to clients, I always just tell them the measure of your relationship is not your bad times. It's not it just because you had a rough year or a rough patch, that is not the measure of your relationship. We've been together 7 years and I can only say one of them was bad. That's amazing. That's 90%.
Absolutely.
That's an A.
That is that is a A plus, okay, in today's size in
Yeah.
relationships. Like y'all excelling.
Like, listen, I'll take those odds. If I'm gonna have
Yeah.
for every 7 year I got one bad year, fine.
Right.
Fine. So I just wanted to say that because I think it's important when we, do
Yes.
spotlights and show people and hold them up as the example to just say, yes, we all go through things,
Mhm.
but it's really about how you come through what you go
Yeah.
through. So
Absolutely. Beautifully said. I love that we're ending on that, especially the piece about the trusting yourself, because, like I
yes,
said, that's what this channel is all about. Is like you
that's right.
trusting yourself first, working with self first, and then taking that to whoever is in any type of relationship dynamic, but especially the one that you are,
Mm-hmm.
romantically involved with. Like it has to start with you. And so
Exactly.
that is, oh my gosh, you're such a gem. You are
Oh,
just
thank
a
you. So
well
are
of
you.
wisdom. Thank you. We are going to have a part two of this because
For sure.
of course, I have lots of superficial questions too, like
I would
all
love it
yes. So
anytime.
Again, thank you for joining me. I will definitely tell people where they can find you, and I'll also add it into the description and all of that.
Sure. So on Instagram, I'm at Get Mikki Bey. It's GetMikkibey. My website is also getmikkibey.com. And if you're looking for my husband and myself, we are at the Poly Couple Next Door on IG, and our website is
Yeah.
thepolycouplenextdoor.com.
Thank you again. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. And we will do this again.
Yes.
Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share your thoughts. If you have other questions y'all want to put into the description for future conversations with Mikki Bey, put them in the comments, all of the things. Share this video, and I will see y'all next week. Love and blessings.
But you give it